Hey everybody, I am back. It has been so much rigmarole trying to figure out how am I going to broadcast. Oh my gosh, do you hear that? Somebody is honking like crazy outside. Anyways, I'm Rachel Milano, founder of the REMwell Foundation, and I have come to you today via Google Hangout / YouTube. I was doing my episodes via the encoding system, which was like failing on me somehow. It was like having on and off and not doing whatever the technology crap is supposed to do. So I have decided to try this Google Hangouts thing, which nobody has told me about, so I've been in the dark. But I see now that it works. So I'm just going to say hi in the chat because nobody's there. And that's okay because the title of this series is Talk Till Someone Listens. So I am doing several episodes about traumatic violation and walking us through us as in survivors and those who are connected to survivors in one way or another, which is everyone, about walking through traumatic violation restoration and the process that we go through and the importance that healing both socially and personally has on our greater good of the greater good of all of us. So I'm going to say hi in the chat. Hi, room. Okay, so I said hi to my nobodies, but somebody may come, and I was told we are supposed to talk for who may be listening in the future. So, okay, I'm going to try to do that. Very serious matters. Very serious matters. If you caught my video yesterday on amputation, it was a serious matter, and it was my first one, so I started off with a lot of ums and ums because I have anxiety and PTSD and CPTSD, and you want to name it, I've got a purse full of problems for you if you would like to know. But today we will not be talking about the purse full of problems that I have. We will talk about the purse full of problems that we all share together. The issue for the day is triggers and landmines, okay? So if you go to my Instagram page, which I just opened, because I'm like just trying to get my whole organization registered under the social media influence, because you know it's influential. That's what I heard anyway. So today's subject matter is I always try to talk to both sides, to the survivor and to the social structure that we live in and that has to live with us, our conditions, and how to be more tempered about our speech with regards to one another. Actually, we sometimes as survivors are very harsh on people who don't understand the nature of being triggered. And on the other hand, society in general is very insensitive when it concerns how to speak to and engage traumatic violation survivors. Ooh, I'm using that word again. You know, I have to kind of re-educate people. So traumatic violation, what is that? What does that mean? Traumatic violation is like an umbrella term, and it represents anyone who has whose will, okay, because we all, you know, depending on which religious or faith-based background that you come from, you believe that you have a will as a human being, that you have will. Some people believe it's free. Some people believe that it's connected to the will of others. There are various belief sets, and I'm not here to convince anybody of any belief set. I am here to help people understand from a layman's approach how traumatic violation continues to impact all of us and encourage those who are struggling to get on the road to restoration. So traumatic violation is an umbrella term that includes anyone whose will has been usurped, whose life has felt threatened or endangered, and as a result, they have incurred or experienced or encountered or adapted in their being to the nature of trauma through violation. versus trauma through organic trauma, which is, you know, your auntie just passed away from old age, or from, you know, some health issues, and you guys are going to go to a funeral and it's going to be sad, and that's traumatic, especially if you're a child, like you just lost your auntie. So that's organic trauma, though, because it's the nature of life. Like, this is the ebb and flow of how our society and our culture and life in general, like animals do it too. Like, we're not alone in the organic process of trauma. So there are other traumas that we experience. Some are known, some we don't really realize that have happened. And only through some more research and development of self-probing and all that kind of stuff can we be like, yo, you know what? That I didn't realize that really bothered me, and it has affected me. And those things which affect you, impact you, and therefore affect what behavior and how you are going to animate your life in the future. So today, triggers, right? A lot of us experience triggers, and I try to find creative ways to kind of move the concept from mind to matter for the people who don't quite comprehend how does that happen in your brain. Like, how is that going on? We don't quite get it, and so you think you're being triggered, and to me that's like you just always got to have drama, or you always got to have some sort of issue. You always have to have something. You always got something going on. Calm down. This, that, or the next thing. I mean, you know, there's different responses from people who don't know how to correctly assess what's happening to you, and so they kind of try to manhandle your situation or mishandle your situation. And then, you know, that creates a new tension and a new hostility, or new, you know, she said, he said, she don't like me because she talked to me like this, and da, 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 da. Triggers are real for traumatic violation survivors, okay? To define a trigger, I have here a remote control. So my definition of trigger, and you can go on my Instagram, and I posted something that has a landmine, an image with a landmine. And that's the closest correlation. That and this remote control are the closest correlations that I could think of to relate non-traumatic violation survivors to how it is for a traumatic violation survivor internally. So I'm going to give those two examples, and I hope that they are helpful in bridging a gap between these understandings and misunderstandings. Okay? So the first one is the remote control. The most recent, most socially crazed thing that happened was the Eagles game. Okay, so everybody was in it. I don't care what religion you are, what nationality you are, what creed you're from, like it doesn't matter what nation you were from. If you were in this country and your life is about football, you were watching, or at least snoozing through, or trying to catch up on later after you did whatever you had to do to get the information. You wanted to know who won the game. Who won the game? So, okay, now we all know who won the game, okay? But I want you to just imagine something. I want you to just, for a minute, think back on your excitement watching the game, okay? Now, this is just like an experiment, like an exercise that we're going to do together, okay? So you're watching the game. In the middle of the game, you have the remote, mind you, right? So you know who I'm using based on like what remote I'm holding, all right? You have the remote and you're moving the volume up and down, or you're pressing pause, like you are in control. You are the one who is the author of your video and your viewing experience, right? Let's say that in the middle, the whole family's sitting around, everybody's there having a good time, and in the middle, somewhere just randomly, porn pops up on your screen. Randomly, okay? Nobody pressed the control button. You don't know how the hell that happened. but it happened. And then you're sitting there trying to get rid of it, and it goes away. A little bit later on, time goes by, boom, it happens again. There it is in front of your eyes. Some sort of vile, sexual, deviant activity is happening in front of your eyes while you're watching the game. The game that everybody in the room is crazy about. The difference is nobody else in the room sees what you're seeing. You're the only one who's seeing this thing pop up out of nowhere. You didn't authorize that with your remote control. You didn't say, oh, now's a good time. Let me rewind and reminisce about some shit that I saw before. No, that did not happen. Then it flashes away off your screen. It's not there anymore. So then as you continue watching, boom, it happens again. Only this time it's a man beating up somebody. That somebody is your mom. And then your mom is like puking all over the floor from just the pain and agony and the throes of violence. Did you put that there? Did you press that channel? These are triggers. Triggers are not controlled by the person who is having the trigger. That's not how it works. Triggers pop up out of nowhere. No one else is seeing them. And I know PTSD survivors and CPTSD survivors, you know what I'm talking about. You know that this is an out of the blue thing. You're in the middle of a conversation. There's not always a rhyme and reason. It's not always a word that triggers a thought. There's not always going to be something someone does, or the way someone smells, or the way someone looks, or the way they walk, or their stature, or whether they're bearded or whether they're not bearded, or bald or not bald, or wearing a certain style of clothing. Like, these are not the only, but they are not the only reasons we are triggered. Oftentimes we are triggered sheerly out of thin air. Like we are interrupted. Our program is interrupted by previously recorded programs at any time, anywhere, any day. That's how it works. So that's one example of just how it enters, just how it comes into our psyche, just how it's playing, how it's interacting with the everyday course of our lives. For some people, we're triggered many, many times. And for other people, we're triggered once in a while. The more you go through the process of restoration, the less the triggers. So they do minimize over time. So I encourage you to stay the course, stay on the road to restoration, because it is worth it in the long run. But it is important to remember that in the initial stages of traumatic violation, triggers are so frequent. I mean, they are just there so often. Oftentimes we repress it. We repress the memories in order to live and function in the right now. But living and functioning in the right now can be incredibly difficult for people who have experienced complex and long-term violations. If you came out of a war, if you came out of a situation where you were a hostage in an environment, and remember, as a child, you're pretty much a hostage to your environment. There's no getting up and going. There's no getting up and moving somewhere else, especially when you don't know anything about running away or finding safety, or even if you are told, there are things that anchor you down. Like, this is the only security you know. Sleep with the devil you know. You don't know what's out there. You don't know how much worse it is out there. So you stay put and you endure. That's what you do. You endure. And while you are while you are growing and developing the way you're supposed to humanly grow and develop, you are also bringing forward this burden of traumatic violation to everything you do and through every experience that you have. If you had a bank account and you had money, the account balance moves forward to the next day. It carries over, right? If you withdraw money, right, the new balance carries over. The new balance carries over. If you add money, the new balance carries over. The new balance carries. This is what's happening to you inside and happening to everybody inside, naturally and organically. But when you have your life internally interrupted by the impacts of violation, those things move over and carry over and have much greater ramifications than had you just been organically rolling through life and carrying over the natural process. So your whole existence and your whole life experience is altered by all of those experiences, by all of the traumatic violation impacts, by all of the intrusion, by all of the interruption, by all of the God help me with my words, by all of the compromises, by all of the degradation that was imparted upon you as a result of traumatic violation of someone else usurping your will, taking over and controlling the aspects of you that belong to you and that only you have authority to gift to other people. And when that is stolen from you, and when your opportunity to say yes or no is revoked by another person, that produces traumatic violation within your soul and changes the programming and the network's future operations. Changes right now, but it also changes future operations. You think about your cute computer, right? You're typing along, and all of a sudden, oh, some ad pops up. Even though you like knocked off the pop-ups and all that extra, but it just pops up. And you're like, ooh, like how many of us can't stand going to a website where they force pop-ups on you and you have to watch this ad and you have to fucking see it. Excuse my language. You have to see it before you can move on. That is a trigger. You understand? That is what it's like for us in our mind. When these things come from the back and replay, nobody is dwelling on it. Stop saying that to survivors. Stop dwelling on the past. Don't you remember your good times? Don't you remember good things that happened to you? And don't you spend a little time in those moments sometimes? Well, you know what? For some of us, those moments aren't good times. And we spend a little time in there trying to figure it out. And it hurts as much today as it did then. Just like when you remember those good times and it felt so good. And you liked that feeling and you could sit and rest in that feeling a little bit. And you might even remember how good it tastes. Ooh, I could taste it right now just thinking about it, right? It is just as present for us as it is for you. So these things you need to remember when talking to traumatic violation survivors so that you're more considerate of what they're going through in the moment. Okay? So that's one thing. Landmines, right? How many of you would volunteer to go to an area? Oof, I just came out of the hospital. That is a nasty bruise. They IV'd me all over the place. Anyways, how many of us would volunteer to go to the hospital? Go to the hospital. See, I got hospital in the brain. Interruptions. How many of us would volunteer to cross a field and you were informed that the field is full of landmines? And they said, you know what? $150 million on the other side. All you got to do is cross over. Listen, our life is on the other side of this field. It's in front of us. We don't have a choice. We can't say no. When violation is infected into our system, and reprograms our system, we don't have a choice about moving forward without those landmines that are implanted in our mind. We don't have a choice. We have to do it with this system that we have acquired, both organically, genetically, and also when those things are internally modified. The internally modification comes at the point of traumatic violation. Impact 1, impact 2, impact 3, impact 4 impacts the impact of 1, 2, 3, 4, and on and on and on. And as we are responding to the cycles of our life rooted in that which was internally modified, we are further compounding the trauma. Not voluntarily, not willfully, organically. Because that's our new organic norm. That's how our brain healed. Our brain fixed the problem. It's just not animating the way yours animates. Our norm is different. It takes a certain amount of humility and a certain amount of human compassion and a certain amount of grace and mercy that a person should, or I should say they should have it, but not everybody applies it, right? So you should have these things. It takes a certain amount of that to be able to just step back from the situation and say, you know what? This person's process is not the same. Because that creates a situation where you are not casting destructive judgment, where you are not casting situations and words that are insensitive or that are provoking the survivor of traumatic violation to act out even more, to feel more isolated, to feel more alone, to feel more misunderstood. That these things aren't occurring. So, landmines. These are things that in the process of restoration, we work on trying to eliminate, trying to unearth, trying to deactivate in our bodies, in our beings. Our muscle memory remembers these things. Our mind remembers these things. The very spirit within us remembers these things, not by choice, by command, by program. So I'm going to go more into this later. But I wanted to just touch base on it. How long I've been talking. I can't see on this one. This is awful. Doesn't tell me how long I've been talking. It doesn't tell me how long I've been live. I wish there was somebody in the room because they could tell me how I could find out how long I've been talking. I'm going to set an alarm. Anyway, I will talk more just on a different subject matter. I'm going to try to fill up the content. I encourage you to share. I will clip little sound bites of this so that you'll be able to share important sound bites that would be less overwhelming for someone to have to hear the whole thing. So for those who can handle 30, 40 minutes, this is a great platform, but you can also go back on YouTube, and I'm going to be trying to take little sections out at a time. So tune in next time, and which won't be long because I'm going to get ready to do another one. Tune in again, and we will talk about more about traumatic violation and its impact on our overall well-being. And all you do, be well and take good care. Bye-bye.